Chances of getting onto the podium come to a complete end. He gets the engine fired up, hopefully, and rejoins the race, but it's a disaster for de Ferran. Bryan Herta's car is being craned away after the disappointment of blowing that left rear tyre that has caused this yellow flag that we're under at the moment. The pace car still out there leading the field around, and we've seen everybody come into the pits bar one. And that is the man who's now leading, Maurizio Gugelmin, driving for Pac West. We've already seen his teammate Mark Blundell out of the race, unfortunately, but Maurizio's decided to stay out there. And interesting tactics there, Jeremy, with everybody else deciding to come in and refuel.
Yeah, it's 20 laps in the books. That's a little bit early for their pit window. Everybody else is really going to struggle to get to the end of this 70 or 83 lap race with just one more pit stop. The Pac West team knows it's got to make two pit stops at some stage or another. They're hoping that by saving a pit stop, if everybody else has to stop one more time, there's Bryan Herta being greeted by the fans. He's got a great attitude, this young man, he really has. And he's bitterly disappointed. He knows he had a fantastic opportunity to win this race, but taken away from him, absolutely no fault of his own.
Well, such a disappointment, as you say, for Bryan Herta, and particularly on local territory, if you like. There is his team leader, Bobby Rahal, and of course the team not that far away. They're based actually just down the road, really, down in near Columbus, Ohio, and Team Rahal, which really has just begun again to pick itself up. They did this last year as well. They had a good finish to last season, and now they seem to be doing similar again. And of course, there was a change of engine over the winter. They switched to the Ford Cosworth unit, and it seems now again to be coming together for them.
It really does. I mean, it's funny that they've changed equipment every single year since Bobby Rahal took over this team in '92. They've changed either the chassis or the engine every single year. So, you know, it makes it awfully tough to start off the season with a brand new technical package, which they have to learn all their different characteristics. But the pace car is in now. We're about to go green. Maurizio Gugelmin at the head of the field.
So Maurizio Gugelmin now, he was running pretty competitively before this yellow flag period. He's not come into the pits, but he's got the man who was leading just before when Bryan Herta went out, Alex Zanardi in second position. And then we've got one of the lapped cars, then Greg Moore in third. So Zanardi's got a bit of respite from the attentions of the Canadian in the blue and white players car. But remember, what it's meant is that Dario Franchitti has now closed up to the back of Greg Moore, thanks to that pace car period. And Dario's got Christian Fittipaldi right behind him. So we really have got quite an interesting tussle now with several different cars. There's Dario Franchitti in the Hogan car looking to make a move on Greg Moore coming down the inside. Oh, it doesn't quite come off. Greg Moore is a hard man to pass, and he would have braked as late as anybody on the outside there as they come past the assembled crowd on the top of the hill there, and Dario Franchitti has to slot in behind Greg Moore once again.
Yeah, but a good, just making his presence felt there. Greg Moore certainly knows that the young Scotsman is behind him, and he wants past if he certainly can. But this stage of proceedings, still early stages, and there is Bobby Rahal, who is running now in 7th position, car number 7. And there, a view of the car, a couple ahead of him is Christian Fittipaldi. But at the end of this first lap under green, Maurizio Gugelmin a good lead over Alex Zanardi.
Gugelmin maintaining that pace at the moment then, and what the question is, of course, how far can he go with this fuel that he's got? He hasn't come into the pits. That's the view back from Dario Franchitti. He's got an onboard camera facing backwards today, and you're looking therefore at Christian Fittipaldi in the position behind in the Swift chassis. And remember, Christian running top Swift at the moment with Michael Andretti still a long way down. He's in 12th place now. He made up a little bit of ground on the last round of pit stops, but Michael's still down in 12th, and we switch from one on board to another, and now we're back with Alex Zanardi, who, if anything's, dropping back a little bit from Gugelmin. But remember, Gugelmin's got a very low load of fuel on that car at the moment, whereas Alex Zanardi has virtually a full tank.
Yes, plus he wants to make sure he doesn't push his tyres too hard. Even for the Firestone runners, tyre wear is a problem on this Mid-Ohio sports car course. It's a fairly abrasive racetrack, but the critical thing is that we have concrete on all the apexes of the corners, asphalt on the rest of it. So the transition from the asphalt to the concrete is what really causes the problems. And Zanardi would be careful not to push those tyres too soon.
The white car there is the car of PJ Jones, which has been lapped by the leader, but still it's staying ahead of Greg Moore and Dario Franchitti at the moment. And of course, PJ Jones will want to try and stay near the front because he may get a chance to get back on the lead lap. But on the other hand, he won't try and block Greg Moore. Indeed, Moore slips down the inside, as you can see from on board Dario Franchitti, and Franchitti will now hopefully get an opportunity to accelerate out of the keyhole, build up the speed here, pick up the slipstream, get down the inside, go through the kink here, building up to around about 190 miles an hour, and he slips past very easily indeed, and Franchitti can continue his battle with Greg Moore. The next one to get past PJ is this man, Christian Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi, the Brazilian, doing a fine job with the Swift. Let's just take a look at the fuel window. There you can see that Guterman really doesn't have many more laps out there before he has to come in to make his stop.
Yeah, another 5 or 6 laps probably we'll see him in the pit lane, so he will drop certainly towards the back of this pack, but he's hoping that everybody else is going to have to make 2 more pit stops after that, and once all that cycling is completed, he'll be out in front of this race. That's the strategy, that's what he's hoping. We'll see what happens.
Now, Brian Herta was the early race leader. We've got him in the pits. Let's hear from him.
Long walk and such disappointment. Did you have any indication that tire wear was going to lead to what happened there with that virtual explosion of the tire?
No, not at all. And to be fair, I'm not really sure it was a tire wear related problem. It could have been a puncture or something like that. You know, there's a lot of focus on the tire wear going into the race, and I have to say that my Goodyear tires were holding up really well for me. I mean, much better than expected even, and this is just an unfortunate thing. I think we probably got a puncture or something. There's nothing you can do about it.
How big a gamble did you think you were taking by sticking with that when the boss man and your teammate was staying on the tire?
Well, like I said, I didn't think it was that big a gamble, and without seeing the data, I don't know exactly what happened, but obviously
big disappointment. We've got a little audio problem down here. Thank you, Brian.
Well, while that interview is going on, you're watching a good match for 6th place as well, with Scott Pruitt holding on to the 6th place in the moment in the yellow and orange car. But Bobby Rahal, that we were talking about earlier, they made up some ground on that round of pit stops, and Bobby has moved up from 12th place to 7th position, as you can see. Started in 16th place as well, so Bobby gradually making progress, and he is running on the harder Goodyear tyre, which seems to be working quite well. Now, of course, whether he's still running on that tyre or whether he's switched to the softer tyre, we can't tell from up here. They are allowed to switch during the course of the race, and it's possible that Bobby would have put the slightly softer Goodyear tyre on in that first pit stop.
I think they were planning to go the distance on what they had, to be perfectly honest, Ben. I think they know that tyre wear is a problem for everybody. I'm not saying it's going to cause catastrophic failures like that happened to Brian Herta. As he said, he probably just picked up a puncture, and that's what caused the tyre to come apart. But certainly, I think Bobby Rahal will be. He's pretty happy with the way that car is running. It's early days. He knows he has great support here. He loves this racetrack. He'll be fine at this stage in the game. You can see the car. You can see it just pushing through that corner on that concrete surface.
Over the rise there, you get a bit of wheel spin. You could just hear it on the onboard microphone. And Rahal continues his chase of Pruitt. You saw Adrian Fernandez in the pits a moment ago, and Adrian looking to be in a little bit of trouble in the Lola, running quite a long way down the order at the moment. Let me just, you can see the order in your top left-hand corner of your screen, but I'll just run through it quickly, keep you up to date with the gaps, because Guterman has a 3.5-second lead now over Alex Zanardi. But remember, Guterman's getting closer and closer to having to make his first pit stop. Greg Moore is in 3rd place, and he's some 3 seconds behind Zanardi. Then it's Dario Franchitti 4th, Fittipaldi in 5th, and then this battle we're looking at the moment for 6th between Scott Pruitt in the yellow and orange and Bobby Rahal in the Miller Lite car. Raul Boesel is not far behind them in 8th position, and then in 9th is Michel Jourdain Jr., 10th Andre Ribeiro, 11th is Gualter Salles, and just into the points Michael Andretti in 12th. Alonso Jr. still running in spite of that incident earlier on when he ran into the back of Mark Blundell, who was suffering with engine problems. Alonso Jr. is running 13th, Parker Johnson's 14th, then Richie Hearn 15th, Carpentier 16th. Gilles de Ferran is still out there after that problem he had coming out of the pits. He's still there in 17th. Jimmy Vasser had a big problem. They couldn't get the tyre changed, and there is Jimmy in 18th position, right behind de Ferran. But as I speak, race leader is into the pits. Maurizio Guterman has got to his pit window. He's got to come in and make his first pit stop. Now, as Jeremy said, this will drop him right down to the back of the queue, but it could be good news for him even so, because the other teams are likely to have to make 2 more stops, whereas Maurizio should be able to get away with just 1 more. He's a little bit slow away, but he gets away eventually, and Maurizio Guterman makes it back out of the pits, and we are going to have to watch his progress throughout the rest of this afternoon, especially when everybody else makes their next stops. So, Guterman At the back, Zanardi takes over the lead, Moore is second, and that means that Dario Franchitti is now in third. Back at Mid-Ohio, Alex Zanardi leads after 32 laps and 51 laps still to go. Greg Moore in second, Dario Franchitti is third. Let's just hear from Goodyear to find out what's been happening from the tyre situation.
Then we saw the delamination on that rear that put him out of the race. Have you been able to learn anything, or can you tell us anything about what may have happened?
We're looking at the rear right now. We assume it was some type of puncture. We haven't seen any kind of problems with any of the rears, throughout the weekend, so we assume it's probably some type of debris, but as soon as we get the tire back, we'll have a chance to take a closer look at it and determine exactly what happened. But at this point in time, we assume it was some type of puncture.
Any problems in delamination of tires for your company and your drivers this weekend?
We're seeing a little bit of tearing on the front tires, which we're noticing during a normal pit stop. Doesn't appear that it's affected their normal routine as far as when they would have normally stopped. So we're monitoring that very closely, obviously, during the race. And a lot of the teams are going to the primary tire, which is a more consistent tire. A lot of the ones that opted for the optional tire, particularly for qualifying. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you, Steve. Jack?
Well, Gary, the litany of frustration for Adrian Fernandez continues here in Mid-Ohio. What put you out?
Well, at the beginning, I have a black flag. I passed PJ on the start. It's I didn't really calculate exactly the timing of the line. And then we were running okay. We had the black flag, but we were making position. Then we had a few problems in our pit stop. And then at the end was a misfire that we couldn't find out at the end, and that was what put us out.
Adrian, this has been a season that I'm sure you and Tasman would love to forget. Nothing seems to go right for you this year.
Yeah, it's nobody has gave up. Everybody's doing their best effort, and we're trying to be as calm, as patient as we can. But it hasn't been easy. We've been trying to work with a lot of people, and they're doing the best effort. But it's not our year, so we just have to try to keep going and keep charging, and we'll see next year.
Thank you, Adrian.
So Adrian Fernandez out of the race, and very disappointing for him, of course.
Yeah, Lola Cars again working hard here. I was speaking to the chief aerodynamicist there, Chris Saunders, this morning, and he was saying they have a new under tray here for the car. And speaking to both Richie Hearn and Adrian Fernandez, it certainly helped the drivability of that car, but still the speed is not yet there for the Lola.
Riding on board with Jimmy Vasser, and we've been watching quite an interesting fight back up the field from both Gilles de Ferran and Jimmy Vasser over the last few laps. Jimmy's right behind Gilles. In fact, they've got Al Unser Jr. just ahead of them. Gilles de Ferran dropped down to 20th at one point, but he's now got himself up into 13th position. So that's a good effort, and Jimmy Vasser has basically been picking them off right behind, hasn't he?
Absolutely. They were indeed 20th and 21st after that caution, after their problems in the pits, and they're now up to 13th and 14th. And next in their sights is that fun little battle there between the two second-generation drivers, Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. And in fact, they're right up with those two right now as they flash past us here to complete lap 35. So that's going to be interesting in the next couple of laps.
Just looking at Fernandez's teammate briefly, there goes Al Unser Jr. now, there he is, and there is Gilles de Ferran, as we were saying, fighting his way back up after that disastrous pit stop when he ended up half spun at the end of the pit lane. And there's a wonderful view. We've got an onboard camera right on the front wing of de Ferran's car, and if you want to see the ups and downs of this track, then this is a camera that gives us a chance. Coming down to the first of the ups and downs, and he's having a little look down the inside of Al Unser Jr., but doesn't quite make it. They climb uphill here, round the left-hander, drop steeply downhill once again, then a tight right-hander at the bottom of the hill. It's tighter than it looks on camera there. Then they climb back uphill under the bridge, over the brow, drop downhill, try and pick the line here, get it on the brakes, and then up over the hill once again as they build up speed out of turn 9. Tremendous sequence, and the drivers are working really hard through that section. Very physical indeed. Now coming up towards the final corner on the circuit, the carousel as it's called. Not as banked as the famous carousel on the old Nürburgring circuit in Germany, but it is a very tight corner, and then they drop down out of it and across start-finish line once again. Still de Ferran looking for a way past the Penske.
Yeah, and interestingly, over the last couple of laps, really only, Michael Andretti has pulled away a little bit from Al Unser Jr., so Al beginning to struggle with that Penske as he turns into the keyhole there with Gilles de Ferran right behind him trying to get a run off the corner. And Al comes off there pretty well, and right behind those two is Jimmy Vasser, the defending PPG Cup champion.
Yeah, but remember, it's still Jimmy Vasser's teammate that's leading this race. It's Alex Zanardi up front. He has a 3.6 second advantage. Now then, on board with Gilles, climbing up this little hill. Hundreds of people up on the outside there. Great place to watch. And then downhill again. Now